I know some of you are going to wonder, what does this have to do with the title? But you know me, I take off and then I land the jet black aircraft. I went to the testing office today, not the testing, but the testing room today, because I was asked to go ahead and be there anyway. And then I was asked to not be there. I was given mixed signals about everything. But I don't know. Anyway, the students have gotten permission from the vice president to take their final exam again, and then that would determine if they can take the standardized exit exam. And if they do win that right, then they'll take the standardized exit exam at the testing center for the company that gives that standardized exit exam, not at the university. The test security would be enhanced, not less. They are taking it now. The morning shift is. Some of the students were not showing up. There were two that I tried to schedule for different shifts. I didn't have the option to do that. I should have realized they were going to show up together, and they would try to coordinate with somebody else. There were good students that showed up, and they're going through hell right now. They're well-behaved students, but they're not sharp in English. And part of the reason for this is because the reason for them going through hell is because they're not sharp in English. So they let their good behavior separate them from the other students, but they didn't let their academics separate them by putting them in a different section. The academic performance is why they were grouped into this section, and they had to suffer because of the behaviors of the worst of them. Therefore, we can't, until you get up close, you can't tell the difference between them and the ill-behaved students. And even still, they're not going to be able to reap the benefits of being good academic students because they're not. They're not making the moves to differentiate themselves and be in different sections, different classes. They're not making these moves and these efforts. They don't want to offend the ill-behaved students. So they're trying to stay put and hope that we can see the difference. And we can see the difference in them, but they're trying to hope that we will then be in a position to make it easier for them academically because of their behavior. What they don't understand is that things have been changed to where we can't do that. The grades that were always in their hands but would have gone through my hands now don't even go through my hands. So the ones marking them don't know the ill-behaved from the well-behaved. They only know the good English speakers and writers from the poor English speakers and writers that don't belong in this level. That's all they know. And there's nobody in the class that really belongs. When Leanna Lanae, Travis Hunter's fiancee, told her side of the story, it all sounds very believable. Sounds very plausible, like what would happen in these sorts of large and crowded events. That she would have had some arguments with security over where she's supposed to be and who's supposed to be in and that sort of thing. And I get it. These big events are an effing logistical nightmare. They really are. Hajj is every year. It has been every year for 1400 years the way that it is now, and it is a logistical nightmare for the Hajj ministry in this country. No, they don't. There's never a time where it just becomes a smooth routine. It never gets to that point. The numbers grow. It doesn't stop. It's a hassle, major hassle, all the time, every year. They deal with it as well as they can, but there's always something that's going to cause stress for some organizer somewhere, every time, every year. It could be minor or major, but it's major to the ones who have to deal with it. So I can understand what the possibility that what she's saying is actually true. I can get that possibility. But let me tell you this about her. Leanna Lanae still is going to look suspicious to us because of what she has said. She's going to look suspicious to us because there's a gender war going on, and we're not stupid and we're not playing games. And since the guilty are going to hide their guilt still, though they are confessing a lot of times, because they're still going to hide their guilt, many of us as men are going to see guilt even in the innocent, and that's not something we're doing intentionally. It's something we cannot help. There's nothing we could have done to avoid it. So we're stuck as we are. Looking at Leanna Lanae, much like my good students have to suffer because they're now being their essays are being graded and marked either by AI or by other professors, not me, none of whom know about their behavior being better than their classmates. And they are judged strictly on their academics, which is the system anyway. The same thing is going on when it comes down to Leanna Lanae. Leanna Lanae does not look different. She does not sound different from other Western women. She has a boyfriend that is athletically gifted. She did not give him the time of day in the beginning. She has stated that she does not have a physical type. She may not. She stated that he had a girlfriend at the time he went into her DMs, and she wasn't going to give him a chance until he was no longer with that girl, and that she responded when he was single later on. And this all sounds believable. But Leanna Lanae, if she really is innocent, is going to have to pay, and there won't be much that we can do to stop it. Based on suspicion alone, the smart thing for Travis Hunter to do was to step away from her. Say, no, bye. Now, apparently, they've been together for 5 years. And so I do think that if, in fact, they've been together for 5 years and they're not, if that's what's going on, they've been together for 5 years. They're since before he was whatever he is now, or maybe he wasn't, whatever the case is. And apparently she's expecting. Whatever it is that's going on at this point, she's going to look guilty. She wants to get married in Tennessee with its marriage laws. That's going to look suspicious. And frankly, I think a good woman would pick a state like that if she knows what the laws are there. See, many of us are unaware of how all women learn the marriage laws of where they live. They don't discuss that with these men. You stop and think about that. They never discuss the marriage laws where they live with the men with whom they want to marry. But They know these things with each other. They sit up in the hair salons and talk about these things with each other because it's a way to get money without working. Don't work for it. Get a job, but don't work for your money. What? You trying to make their butts happy keeps you on a treadmill, even sometimes when you have a good woman that's surrounded by bad women, because she ain't going to stay good for long. Leanna Lanae, whether she is really just after that bag and can't stand him like we think, or she really just is with him because now he's available to her and not with somebody else. Whatever the case is, I want you guys to realize that you're not wrong because you can't tell which one it is. I'm not wrong because I can't tell. You're not wrong because of that. It would be nice if we could read minds and all that stuff, but we can't read minds. And I don't want you to feel like you're under some kind of like you're blameworthy because you can't read minds, because you don't know what the hell is going on in the minds of these women. So is she good? Is she bad? You don't know. You know what, man? It ain't. Don't even beat yourself up about that. It's not something that you did wrong. Most of the trouble that we're in with women is because we can't read their minds. When you think about it, they're keeping secrets. They're talking about certain things at hair salons and other venues where you don't find us and you do find them. And they know we can't read their minds. And this gives them motive to change. If they're good, it gives them motive to change. How you going to blame yourself? If you hear her side of the story and you start to feel like, you know what? How do I know which parts are true and which parts are lie? Don't blame yourself. One, you're not responsible for figuring that out. And that's the whole point. Not only are we not in their relationship, but the fact is that when you are in one, Travis is not responsible for figuring out when she's lying and when she's telling the truth. The smart thing for him to do is to simply crap test her. No, she doesn't have the right to crap test him at all, but it is for him to crap test her and find out. What does she want? A guy that other women don't want? She really seems to want a man that other women aren't after, that's really available to her. Seems to. I don't know how true that is. I don't think most women actually want that. I look at her past and I'm like, did you really work as a dancer? If you did do that, then would you even want Travis Hunter if you had not done something like this? If you did not have this kind of past to scrub off the internet, would you want him? There's still questions that got to be asked. But it ain't your job to try to figure this thing out, figure out what's in her head. The smart thing for you gentlemen to do is to game each other up, stay gamed up. Don't trust somebody without really knowing them, without truly knowing them. And more importantly, we're going to have to start to ding-a-ling police each other. The way that people are reacting to Travis Hunter does show a positive step, even if maybe he's right and she's not really able to use him right now. Even if that is the case, the point is that the fact that we are willing to ding-a-ling and wallet police each other to a certain extent says something, because we need to do that because these ladies have been doing it. So men that were not in the gym shooting with Travis Hunter or on the field practicing and running drills with Travis Hunter, men who were not doing any of these things, still stepping up and saying, man, don't you give everything to the wrong one, is a good sign, because that's exactly what women do to each other. Women tell each other to withhold far worse from far better men. Girl, go on, get you a BBW. Then these men can't tell you nothing. Get a bad attitude. If you get a BBW, it'll give you a license to have a worse attitude and behave worse than what you've been behaving. Girl, go ahead and get you a boob job so that you'll have the right to behave worse than what you've been behaving. Girl, you too nice to normal men. They're policing each other. They're punani policing each other, and even personality policing each other. And they're doing it in no constructive manner at all. We men, to a certain extent, there's a reasonable limit to this, but we're going to have to start learning to police each other. If not police, at least we're going to have to start learning to game each other up and doing it at a young. That's why I say we get to these brothers when they're young and we do not take responsibility for feeding and clothing them. But we got to game them up because these women ain't taking responsibility for feeding and clothing the little girls they're gaming up. And all they're doing is teaching them how to run game. That's why they know the marriage laws in different states and we don't. That's why it is that they can sit up and talk about chivalry and all the rest of them will pick up the same talking points about chivalry and spread it, but we don't get to talk about the traditional ladies' roles. That's why it is that they can all avoid accountability so much uniformly, again and again and again with each other, and we can't. If I even sit up here and tell you about accountability and I say, hey, man, look, you ever notice that everything we're accountable for is being too easy? Everything, every other detail more than that falls under the umbrella of we've just been too easy. You ever stop and think about that? You ever notice that? We're simply too easy. Nothing else. You ever stop to think about that? And they only take accountability for one thing. Girl, I was too easy on him. They'll sit up and say stuff like I gave it away too soon, or I didn't I gave him too much of a chance, so I left that door. The only thing they ever take accountability for is being too easy, when in fact all they really are is too hard. They're just too easy for some guys. You ever notice that? They're teaching us the accountability that we should take. And we're not picking up on that lesson because we've been trained to not think analytically and critically and deeply when it comes to them. We've been trained to start thinking a hell of a lot less. Because, you know, if you overthink it, you'll never get with anybody. That's how we've been trained to think. No, if a bitch gonna walk away because you thinking and you got your brains working at the time that you're around her, she got something to hide. That's all the F that is. And now that we're understanding that, Leanna Lanae's innocence won't really matter. It's just like that lady that she got done in, became the victim of the capital crime by her white boyfriend in Phoenix. She apparently had nothing against bruhs. Her friends have said she had nothing against bruh. She gave this dude a chance, and this is where it led. And that could have very well have been. But initially, her reputation was a casualty of the gender war. And what is the reason for that? It's not that I wanted it to be that way, but her reputation, just like Leanna Lanae's, if Leanna Lanae really is innocent of anything, is going to be a casualty of the gender war, because the lionesses have to start going after their lions. And they're not doing that. The lionesses are still letting the hyenas bully them into staying inside and staying silent and not competing. And they're just going to have to go ahead and start getting them claws out and start scratching and biting the hell out of some of these hyenas. And saying, bitch, if I catch you wearing the skin of a lioness one more time, if I catch you trying to disguise yourself as a lioness one more time, trying to get one of these lions that belong to us, trying to deceive them, I'm going to cut your ass and bite you to death. You don't get these men. So in a nutshell, what I'm pretty much saying is they got to be ready to start slicing up these hyenases to get a lion. The same way that the hyenas sit up and tell us, well, my man need to get out there and kill some ninjas and get some bodies to be with me. Same way. Those are the lionesses are going to have to start doing with these hyenas. Or stay inside and the lions never find you because you let the hyenas bully you. I'm not saying this because I hate lionesses. I'm saying this because the lionesses have not threatened the hyenas enough in exchange, and they have not done enough. You don't really know how many of you outnumber them until you are outside at the same time the way the hyenas are. That's when you will find out how many of you are actually lionesses. Shout out to Crimson Cure for the terminology. I myself have had to, in a sense, practice being a lion this term, this semester. I've had to do it because as I've held my students accountable for the academic achievements that they did not get, that they did not achieve. Guess what? Since I've had to do that, this is what's happened. I've had some professors come along and tell me, listen, Jet, if this happens again, they're probably going to fire you. You're doing your job. And right now you're not being blamed. But next time you get a crop of students this bad, just go ahead and pass some of them. And I'm like, I don't think y'all understand. Number one, that's not honest. Number two, it wasn't up to me anyway. The marking, the grading for the last two tests was taken out of my hands in the first place. I could not have given them points if I wanted. It was objectively determined that they failed because somebody was interested in finding out how many of them failed and how many of them didn't. It wasn't in my hands. But when it is, I have to be honest. What they're saying is duck your head, go along to get along. And I generally would agree when it doesn't harm anybody and take away somebody else's rights. But in this case, I myself got to be the lion and say, listen, we cannot be cowering like a bunch. Look, we can't act like a bunch of hyenas. We have no business walking with our backs straight and our heads up if this is what the hell we're going to do all the time. Now, somebody else does it and it wasn't us, then it wasn't us. If somebody else passes these students and I don't know nothing about it, it wasn't on me to begin with. But if I wrote down honestly what they earned and what they did not earn, and I did my job, then I can walk upright like a man. What you want me to do? Walk in here on all fours, cackling and laughing? Is that befitting of a human being? I'm not even anatomically designed for that. So I'm not doing that. So that's not happening. I'm not going to try to do that. But I don't want to lose the job. Of course, I like who I'm working, but that's just a possibility I got to face. If I'm going to be honest, if I'm going to have academic integrity, because believe you me, when you get caught padding stuff, you get caught lying about people's results, good or bad, you get caught doing that, bruh, you can't teach anywhere after that. How many of them teachers lost their license because of the Atlanta cheating scandal? They would have been fired if they had been honest in turning those failing grades for those students. But now they in jail and they can't get a teaching license when they get out because of the Atlanta cheating scandal. They're probably out of jail now, but they can't get no teaching license anymore. They barred, as far as I know. And if they did get one, who the hell is going to trust them? Didn't you do time for a cheating scandal in Atlanta? How to ask me how I know? I was never employed by Atlanta public school systems, but because I worked in Atlanta, I was suspected of this in one time when I worked in my hometown. I actually got a job in my hometown teaching for a semester. And there was some people that said, hey, that's my black son over there. Yeah. Y'all remember back when she was real blacktive back in the 90s? Yeah, that's her son over there. He used to teach in Atlanta. You know that, right? They just had a cheating scandal. So what we do, somebody go and tell him to cheat for them kids. And then we got him. And it didn't work because when I was told to cheat for them kids, or I wouldn't get the job again, I knew there was a setup. So sometimes even I have to face a test of this. And that's cool, and I don't regret that. I just want to be honest. Because you see, When I go back to visit the States, I got to look my parents, my brother, and my kids in the face. And if the reason that I had the money for the ticket to go visit them was because I did something dishonest, then I can't look them in the face no way. And if they say, well, Dad, how come you never look us in the eye? Then I got to say what it is that I did. Then they ain't supposed to want to look at me no more after that. But not only that, maybe one day I'll talk to you about the chess moves that I got prepared anyway. Maybe that should be the topic for another recording. In the meantime, keep your mains, gentlemen. And understand that when you look at ladies whose guilt or innocence is hard to prove one way or another, remember that it is good to stay aware, but do not beat yourself up over the head and hold yourself accountable for being psychic. It's not something you can do. And if you are trying to be fair, that's fine. But if you accidentally, truly accidentally, took aim at a lady that ain't had nothing to do with no gender war, and you find out about it later, don't beat yourself up about it. Just don't stay on that same track once you learn that she ain't part of the problem. But don't beat yourself up because you didn't know somebody was innocent. I do believe in being fair and not going after the innocent when you know, but understand that there are going to be times when you might go after someone later, you find out the innocent. Ain't nothing you could have done to stop that. Because they could easily they could start going after these fake lionesses that are really hyenas underneath the disguise. And if they got to do it in groups, so what? Lionesses don't owe it to hyenas to give them a one-on-one fight. It's not something that they owe anyway. So if they need to group and gang up on hyenas, fine. Pick them off one by one, fine. Okay, do it. We okay with that. As long as you actually getting the hyenas. Making them run inside, making them run indoors. That's fine. But if you feel like you need to be polite around them and not offend them in front of us and side with them against us even at times, or pretend or appear to do that, and it's not something we have an agreement on for a tactical operation, then guess what? We can't tell y'all apart. We might just wind up biting both of y'all. And when I say bite in this case, I don't even mean we take our jaws and clamp down. I mean, we do the lockout game that Lion of MGTOW was talking about, ironically, what a name, and how appropriate that name is for this purpose. Just closing our doors, locking them, because it's getting cold this winter. I just said that at the beginning of this recording. And that lockout game, that give them nothing, GTN, that is enough. Just close the door. Don't answer y'all. Bolt the door. Don't talk to y'all. Don't respond to the sound of you or your kids crying. You could have been a lion that's just in an unfortunate situation. And you know what? Them doors ain't open. You can sit there and knock all day long. Y'all can cry until them tears freeze. We ain't opening the doors. For what? Why would we do that? If we're going to do that for. We don't know if you a lioness or a hyena. You didn't want to distinguish yourself. We can't tell now. We're just going ahead and closing them doors. I hope that what I said benefits. Thanks for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like the black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thanks for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways with a phrase. Jet Black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.